don't put your phone number or email on that free $10 promotion coupon, because that's why that runs, even if you don't buy the product, because that's how they find you everywhere else, and they keep retargeting you because you gave them the one piece of data they need to find you anywhere.
Welcome to Threat Vector, the Palo Alto Networks podcast where we discuss pressing cybersecurity threats and resilience and uncover insights into the latest industry trends. I'm your host, David Moulton, Senior Director of Thought Leadership for Unit 42. Today's guest is Arjun Bhatnagar, co-founder and CEO of Cloaked, a company dedicated to helping individuals protect their privacy online and in real life. As a Forbes 30 Under 30 honoree, Arjun has a deep background in entrepreneurship, web development, and cybersecurity innovation. In our conversation, Arjun shares the personal story of how building an AI to manage his own health during the pandemic sparked a new mission to help people take back control of their personal information. We dig into the real risks behind the apps we use every day, the true cost of public Wi-Fi, and why changing simple behaviors can dramatically improve cybersecurity posture. This episode is packed with practical tips and fresh perspectives for anyone who wants to be safer online. Whether you're managing passwords, posting on social media, or navigating today's AI-driven world. Arjun, you've been developing and hacking since you were, 10 years old? And then it was like the pandemic where your interest in or your journey to privacy really took off. Thanks to this AI data box that you built for your own health. Can you take me back to that moment and walk us through how that experience sparked the idea for Cloaked?
Absolutely. And I'm excited to talk about it. It's been an interesting journey for me learning about privacy. I've always been privacy centric, but that moment really clarified for me what I really wanted to do. So back in 2020, I was really interested in my own data. What does my data look like? Where does it live? What's going on with it? Because I wanted to see if there's a way to correlate different things about me to make me feel better, understand what can I do better to ultimately be happier or minimize issues or kind of keep track of things around health that I should pay attention to. So I ended up getting a Mac Mini, putting it in my apartment, and I wrote integrations into everything about myself. Basic stuff like my Google Calendar, my Facebook data. I hacked iMessage, my Google Calendar, my health data, my eating data, my banking data, my GPS data, movement data. Everything about me, I put in this box. And in that box, as it's pulling everything, I started writing some crude models to start analyzing this data and telling me what's going on, what can I do about it, and can you help me take some actions? And without me even realizing it, very quickly, it started doing things. It said, hey, I noticed you missed your workout yesterday. Do 15 push-ups between these two meetings. Based on my spending habits, it said, let's cut back on the alcohol and the Chinese food. But it hit me in the face one day, went to lunch with somebody, and I put my phone down. End of lunch, I picked up my phone and realized my really crude AI had a full conversation with a then girlfriend. It told her, I love you. It sent her memes, and it did the entire conversation while I was eating. And I picked up my phone and realized, holy cow, this is crazy. But I realized in that moment that I didn't own any of my own data. And two, that we're headed into some AI future. It's going to be important to figure out what data ownership, my privacy means. Because if I can do this in my backyard type of thinking, well, when AI and big tech gets into AI and my personal data, it's going to be crazy.
Let's get into a conversation around digital footprints. We often hear about these big data breaches. How does that data breach at a mega corporation affect our everyday online activity? And what do we do with this data trail that's out there about us?
It's always the big question. I'm glad we starting in the data footprint, because I think we look at ourselves from past, present, and future. And looking at the data breach in the past is like, well, what do I do about it? What do I think about it? One, talking about the data breach, as individuals, we should be concerned. I think I had this kind of big moment myself unpacking data breaches when I saw the Park app. I don't know if you've used that before, but for parking your car at different places, they had a big breach, and I didn't realize in the exposure letter, it was really funny. It said, so this is the details of the breach. Here's what was compromised: your name, your address, your license, the make and model of your car, your interests, your birthday, your habits. I was like, where are you getting, how is that? And then at the big part of the email, which is not in small font, don't worry, your password is safe. That wasn't compromised. And I was like, yeah, but everything about me was taken, including my social or whatever, was all part of this parking app. And it was really that eye opener is that we look at it as like, oh, my password is safe, but really that data is being aggregated, stolen, shared, and we say there's good actors and bad actors. I wouldn't say every company's bad for collecting data, but whether it's good or if a company is quietly tracking you, it can either be stolen or aggregated. It does come back to bite us, and it bites us in a few different ways. It's either visceral, we see fraud, incidents, people try to compromise your identity. It comes into the impacts to you and your family or people you're connected to. They actually see either more target attempts, so all around kind of your security posture. But then your data is also used to weaponize against you. You start seeing targeted advertising, pricing manipulation, habits, profiles that subtly, I don't want to get too philosophical, uh, change the way you think. And so and I always tell people, like, why do I care? Well, one, you can be compromised, your family can be compromised, and it can be even a physical threat to you. Two, it can be an actual financial impact. Products know that, hey, if I know this person's willing to spend more, I'm just going to charge them more. And the last part is you are being emotionally and mentally manipulated through your data. And whether you want it or not is something you should wrestle with, but everyone's vying to. Before, old school advertising was, so let's put a big billboard and feel good about drinking a Coca-Cola. But now it's that, well, I'm going to influence you to think about Coca-Cola, and I'm going to make sure that it's something implanted in your brain, Inception style. And then I'm going to force you toward that path. And this is being used for politics as well as purchasing. And I think these breaches are not, yes, they're a problem. They reveal a bigger problem, which is that everybody has everything about you.
So, Arjun, I want to go back on something real quick here. You said security posture. And I just want to make
Yeah.
sure that for the folks who don't spend
Yeah.
every moment thinking about cybersecurity, what is security posture?
Absolutely. I'm glad you called me out. I try to avoid the specific jargon, but it does come out. Security posture, or that definition you'll hear from security individuals, is the way you conduct yourselves to keep yourself safe, that people come to you safe, and your habits in the security world that you are following or implementing. So, for example, there's technology security posture and like how people can secure the servers and whatnot, but for us as people, it's the way we act. So I think about the way I think about my passwords, how I communicate and share information between me and my family, the way that I click and open links, the way that I view and share files. It's the actions I take and what habits I created to minimize risk to myself and my family. And
Yeah, that makes
that's the
sense.
security posture word.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of those apps on your phone. You mentioned Parked, and I could see how your parking data, that's your physical location over time, that could be really dangerous. But let's talk about some of the apps on your phone. They're asking for things like location, contact. They want to use your microphone, your camera. What should we think about before we hit that allow button?
Yeah. So this is when people say, what is like a simple thing I can do as an individual? I come into this starting at this specific point about permissions. Start with no. The answer I always say is start with no and start to use the app and give selective permissions as you use it. That's like, even people like, oh, Arjun, you don't have TikTok. I said, I do have TikTok. I don't look at it that often, but I have it. But I've denied everything. I even made the account. I use cloaks. So everything's cloaked on it. But the idea is that I start with no, and no matter how much TikTok keeps asking for all my contacts, I say I don't need to give you my contacts. I don't care to give you all my contacts. And I think that's a simple way to think about it. And as you use a feature, give permissions. And then when you're using a permission, I recommend don't do allow all, do allow selective, and pick and choose what you want to share with an app or a website you're using.
So that takes us back to that behavior that you're talking to, the security posture idea, where you can say one of the first things that you could do is stop saying allow or allow all when an app asks, but you could also go back in and change those permissions on a lot of the apps that you have
Absolutely.
today so that you're not constantly leaking out data in a way that you maybe didn't expect because it's unclear when it's saying, I want to use your camera, I want to use your location. What does it need that for? What is it really, or who is it sharing that with? You don't know. And if you turn that off, that can start to shrink that exposure that you're facing today.
Absolutely. And you'll see the apps respond. They show you, I can't do this feature or I can't do this thing. So at least it'll know what these things are tied to.
Well, it wouldn't be a Safe Summer type of podcast if we didn't talk about passwords and the headache of passwords. Yeah. We know we need them, but I know a lot of people struggle to manage them. I've used a password manager for years. I've tried to insist on that within the area where I'm the resident geek and as far out as I can. But just creating strong passwords isn't enough. We need unique ones. We need different ones for different accounts. Can you talk about why it's worth the hassle to have unique passwords and why a password manager may be the right choice for a lot of folks who have maybe resisted it?
So I'll break this into a few different points around the password headaches. I totally get it. And I'm a little contrarian here where there's security professionals will just say, you need complex, individualized passwords to every service, full stop. But the problem is when you make that statement, it's a big leap from where people are today. So what I'd say is that how do you progressively get better? Relating to passwords, I'd say people have heard of password managers and it's definitely a great tool. I'll get to that in a second. The real part is like, how do you think about passwords? One, we want to create the distinct nature, and I'll explain why that's important. When you have a password, if someone wants to compromise an individual and hack into their account, etc., they're not going to necessarily try to hack into your bank account, your JP Morgan account, etc., because that account's probably pretty secure. They have a lot of incidents. However, when you do use the same password, I'm going to go compromise the jean shop you bought jeans from recently because their security might be weak and they're not investing in a massive security team to make sure your information is safe. But somebody might go find a compromise there, or they might have been already compromised. And if you use the same password, well, somebody's just going to use that to then get into your bank account. And this is where password reuse is a big problem because I'm just going to find the weakest website that has not the best security, find that compromise, and then use that to work my way to your Gmail or use your bank account, primarily your Gmail or your Verizon or phone bill company, because I can use those to compromise other accounts and it becomes a chain of attacks. So that's why password use is bad. But then what do you do about it? I'd say coming back to habits, having a habit about passwords is really important. So what I would say is first off, thinking about the different types of passwords you want to have. That's the first way of approaching this. So for example, my computer password is unique to my computer and I do not use that anywhere else. So fundamentally, and I do not use that anywhere online because it's offline my computer. And if you get into my computer, you basically have gotten the keys to the kingdom there. So that one is unique. I do then say for my bank account, my Gmail, my Apple, like these things have distinct passwords. And I'll tell you about kind of ways to think about passwords in a second, but that information of like, these are very sensitive things that can compromise me. I make those distinct. And then as I get into other accounts, I just create password habits to make them useful. Now I use Password Manager. Cloaked is my password manager, but I'd say that what I've always done is just following these rules. Coming into making a password, when people realize that it's a famous comic that your password is, we keep teaching you 12 characters, a symbol, and all that stuff. That's not the best password. A long password is actually much safer than a short one with a bunch of random symbols in it. You adding an extra $sign to your password is not making it that much harder for someone to crack it. It's really the length of it is what makes it really hard. So in front of me, like I'm looking at things like I got a napkin, a remote, a marker, and a cable. Napkin, remote, marker, cable. One exclamation point. Great password. It's easy to remember, and it's going to fit all the criteria and very hard to crack. And it should be, you make it easy to remember, but then also harder to compromise. That's how I do my passwords, is to kind of have a
I like it.
passphrase or system things that you can remember, but they're really hard to compromise.
So I like
It
that idea.
creates,
And
yeah,
you called it
yeah,
a
go ahead.
passphrase. I end up using song lyrics. So, I'll find something that's the earworm, and then I add the a little bit of complexity through odd characters and or, a repeatable term that I'm like, yeah, I like that for that website. As we're out and about and looking for free Wi-Fi or better connection than we can get on a mobile device, a lot of times popping into a coffee shop. What should people know about those Wi-Fi networks that are out there that are public, and what should they be looking for or maybe looking to not do on those networks?
Yeah, this is an interesting thing that's very, I feel like it's intentionally confusing between VPN companies. The agenda is to sell VPN. So I think to demystify this from the Wi-Fi, when you are on any Wi-Fi network, whether it's got a password or not, all of your internet's traffic is flowing over that router. So an admin or other computers in that network can snoop and watch that traffic. If you are using HTTPS, you can't really figure out what's going on. But if you are sending a file to someone in the network, you might be emailing something. You can still figure out the traffic that people are doing. Like, what websites are people browsing on? You can figure that out. You can try to build a profile on someone based on the websites they're using. So I'd say to think about Wi-Fi networks is that it's okay to be in a public Wi-Fi network, and it's okay to not have a VPN running when you're doing a public Wi-Fi network. A VPN is a good idea, but I'll say a VPN is not your silver bullet. The things I'd say is, when you're a public Wi-Fi network at an airport or coffee shop, be careful of signing into sensitive accounts or doing a lot of things that you might be nervous around. Or you're in a coffee shop and you want to wire a lot of money, just maybe you do it when you get home. When you are trying to send a very sensitive document, you might be uploading it to sketchy websites or things like that. I'd be careful of doing that on a public Wi-Fi network, because people can see where you're doing things. So I'd be cautious with the websites you visit is the first principle. The files you're sharing, second principle. And the core thing to look at a public Wi-Fi network, this is a common form of attack, is making sure you're joining the right network. So people often will spoof Wi-Fi networks. You'll say like free Wi-Fi or something like that, and you're connected to somebody's laptop. And so maybe everything you're doing, and this is why it's very scary, is that you could go to a website on a network and it might look like Google because you're on somebody else's router. And when you type in login information, it'll fail, but you've now given up your password, your email address, everything.
And so, kind of going back to that security posture, those behaviors, those choices that you make when you're out in public, adding different protections, VPN, good, being careful about which networks you are willing to attach to, and then maybe limiting the types of things that you do on a public network at the airport or the coffee shop. All of those things can reduce the likelihood that you're going to have a very bad day.
Exactly. It's I think the posture keeps coming back, is that there's simple habits that you instill and it follows you wherever you go, reduces your ability to be compromised or information to be taken.
A lot of people like to share in social media. It's a place that begs for us to say everything, to share everything. Talk to me about why you should think twice about what we post, even if we think our settings are private.
Yeah, I think this is now coming back very visibly with AI, but everything that we're putting out there lives forever. And now, when we put it out there, people are using it to train AI models and it's being aggregated. So the first thing is that everybody wants you to share more, but we want to be careful, because that information, we do not know how it comes back to target, attack, or use to infer things about us. And I've always pointed out, even we have a
Yeah.
team member here at the company who had a new, their first child. And because they work at Cloak, they're like, Arjun, I'm nervous about posting baby photos. What's actually the best way? There are some models that you can use online that confuse the picture for AI, where the AI might think it's a picture of a shrimp, a piece of shrimp, but it's actually the baby photo because you can change the pixels. So what I recommend is at least being conscious before you're posting is a very big win. Like that around that this information will be used even with privacy settings on in some way or another. So starting there and then actually maybe not posting something if you realize like maybe I shouldn't put that out there.
Let me show my ignorance a little bit. I have always taken the mindset that if I pay for something, then I'm the customer and I have a bit more control. If something is free, then I am not the customer, I'm the product. And I've used iCloud as a place to share privately photos with family members, but I've not posted photos to social media that I'm not completely comfortable with being out there. Is that a good mindset or have I made a mistake?
I think that as a principle is a good way to look at things to start to organize the noise. I wouldn't say it's the best, like 100% answer, but you are right. I look at this from my lens. What is this company motivated by? Like when I look at all the different, let's say, call them evils or not, big tech and all these companies and looking at the data, I say, what's the least evil of them all? I look at motivations. So Apple, right? Why you trust iCloud? I also trust Apple is because they are gobbling up data. They're doing a bunch of things, but they're self-serving. Their goal is to kind of sell the data themselves, use the data themselves. They're not looking to put the data out there. They want to sell me another iPhone. So I'm like, well, fine. It's within the same house. Whereas everyone else, they're putting data out there. So I think the idea is that when you are paying for something, you are at least, there's a good chance that your data is not being actively resold. However, that may not be fully true. And then if it's free, you can absolutely bet that your data is everywhere. So I would say
Okay.
that knowing it's free, you should be very, very cautious about what you're putting out in that product.
I think it's helpful to know that there's a sorting principle, but it's not a absolute safe if you're paying for it. Even then, there's reuse. At least it's a start. Something that I promised I would bring up. My family is always asking about like the creepy ads that feel like they follow you around. Right? You look at a new shoe, and then suddenly that shoe ad's everywhere. Mentally, I understand what's happening with retargeting. I've been in marketing long enough and studied this, but can you talk to our audience a little bit about what's happening behind the scenes and then why should they care or maybe why should they not care?
Yes, I think that this is always the fun because we all kind of feel it but don't know what to point at. So what's happening behind the scenes is that one, it's not listening. There's one people's like, oh, am I being listened to by your microphone? There's some of that people kind of say it might be happening, but reality, what's really happening is that you are being retargeted and tracked based on either inputs that you provide, like you tap an ad or you tap a piece of content, they're tracking that. But it could also be you are in vicinity of other people who did the same thing. So that's really what happens is that if you are with somebody who is also interested in your favorite TV show, who might be interested in learning about blue sweaters or might also have a dog. Like they're tapping these things, and then you are sharing an IP address. You might have some connection between your contacts. You gave the same app your contact permissions. They're using data to then join you together and then serve you ads wherever you are. So it's your IP address, your physical address, your contacts, your device settings, and then the apps you're using. These are used to join your information to then make an ad go everywhere. And the moment they found you, the ad will follow you everywhere. So it
Yep.
just becomes a quick journey of finding you. So that's why it happens. And I'm seeing it constantly. And we know the old story of Target knew about that woman who that was pregnant before the woman did. Like it is that's that feeling where you are being tracked. I think the thing is, going forward, one, these things do tend to age off. As you said, you spent some time in marketing and a lot of these things. Nobody wants stale data. So people want new information, new things. And the best thing I talk about is data poisoning. So what can you do about this? So first, easy thing, don't tap an ad when you see it. Maybe go on an incognito window or use like a different service. I recommend also some browsers that remove the tracking from these. I use personally the Brave browser. Not here to do an ad on Brave, but there's different browsers that help remove the tracking side of things. But don't click it. Go somewhere else. Find the website and then go to the journey. That way they don't see that. But then the other thing is that don't put your phone number or email on that free $10 promotion coupon because that's why that runs, even if you don't buy the product, because that's how they find you everywhere else and they keep retargeting you because you gave them the one piece of data they need to find you anywhere. So I say with data poisoning is using virtual information, like a secondary virtual email or phone number and these things such that it doesn't track you. I also recommend, I always use my outdated address from like 4 addresses ago. Because technically, if you research me, you might say, oh, I guess Arjun does live there. But actually, I don't. So then it starts to get confusing for somebody trying to track you. And it's not a human. It's often an algorithm or a system that's tracking you across the point. So using outdated information, alternative information, and ultimately not tapping. I do pay for a lot of things to not see ads because I hate ads too.
Pro tip for anyone out there that's paying for their iCloud service, it will actually do a thing called hide my email. It's not free. It's part of I think the first tier. And it creates the fake email address for you on the fly. And I like that as something that really does help me as I'm tempted sometimes to try things out, right? But it's not tied back to my, at this point, completely polluted personal emails that I've had for ages. But it is starting to make things a little bit better. Going forward, I can then turn those email addresses off and then the bounces start to occur. And I notice that the ads don't hit my email and the things that I was looking at don't show up when I'm online. So some of that poisoning, some of that intentionality showing up, and maybe a note to marketers out there that are really leaning into this. Maybe just like give it a rest, right? We've hit a critical point where people don't need more. Yeah, let's back out and talk about big picture for a second. Beyond just protecting our accounts, why does digital privacy actually matter in our everyday lives?
Yeah, so big picture, and tying back to what you just said about the Apple hide my email. So one, it all ties back to big picture. So at Cloak, we do that. We create phone numbers, emails, virtual in the exact same way for that problem. Because the big picture problem that we want to communicate, or if you have to share something, that your single data point, for example, your phone number, can leak everything about you. Email, address, your family members, your social security number, your credit card, your passwords can be all found from just one data point, your phone number. And that's because we just give this out so readily, so easily. And by continuously giving it out, it reinforces that data point that is my valid piece of data to keep tracking me. And the big picture to think about is that whether it's for good or bad, companies are collecting information and we can't just fix it by hoping the companies get better. We have to think about ourselves and protect ourselves. And as AI becomes a big threat, what are you doing to feel safe in the age of AI? And what are the tools you're leveraging? And the goals of tools make it easier to such that you can feel comfortable browsing online, interacting with AI, and trying everything you want to do, because it's the government and companies aren't going to fully change. It's up to us to kind of leverage the right tools.
At South by in Austin, you gave a demonstration where you asked the crowd to call a phone number that's part of Cloaked. And I have to say it was the best demonstration of software I'd seen because I lost count of the number of gasps from the crowd as people were listening to the message that came up and they were hearing their name, they were hearing most of the social security number, they were hearing information about themselves. And I think it was really back to our opening conversation about how being able to see your data can change your behavior. In this case, you can hear what data is publicly available about you just from your phone number. I believe people left that demonstration with a different mindset about what they're going to give away and what they wanted to do to feel comfortable to operate in the modern world where data is just flowing out, and if they wanted to control their privacy. So if you're out there and you're thinking, I got to see what this demo is that Arjun gave or Dave's talking about, that's on the website. And I got to say, I recommend going and giving it a try. It was jaw-dropping, man.
Well, I think this was. I'm glad you appreciated it. The demo is really focusing on the point that we know our data's out there, but we don't really understand the extent of how much that is, and we don't have any of this data. They and all these companies are aggregating, selling, but it's so easy to find it. And I don't know if you want, I can share on this, or we can point at cloak.com, but it's such a powerful tool because it's visceral. And we made the phone number because like, hey, just call it. No information needed. You don't have to type anything. You feel it right then and there.
That's absolutely right. It was so simple and yet so powerful. So we're about out of time, and I want to leave you with the final word. Imagine that every listener is going to be at the summer barbecue, and now they're the tech savvy friends. They've listened to this conversation. They're ready to go. What advice would you give them to give to their friends as they're standing around enjoying a beautiful, summer barbecue, and they hear somebody say something or somebody asks a question, and they can hop in and really help their friends or their family out?
Yeah, I think if you rewind maybe 10 years ago, no one may maybe bring up privacy at a barbecue, but funny enough, it will come up, especially now. Maybe not in a formal "what is my digital privacy" sense. But one thing I would share, if you're in a barbecue situation and you're talking about it and the topic comes up, is that I would say to someone, did you know that really anyone gets your social security number from your phone number? And people say, no, I don't believe you. Well, it's true. It's because we give the same information to the IRS that we give to Domino's. That phone number, for example, can easily tie your entire digital life, your family's life, everyone you're connected to, with just one data point. And that data point can be used to track, aggregate, target, or compromise you. And that's why, and I'd say we've already seen this at barbecues. Give that phone number a call. Give the Cloak Hotline a call. The number is the 855-752-5625. But that number can show you in that instance, this is true. Anyone can find everything about you. Well, maybe we should do something about it.
Absolutely. And that's, part of what we're trying to do is put this series together as not our usual listeners, but our usual listeners on Threat Vector to ask their friends and their family to take, one or two episodes and listen. And I wanted to have you in because you had that privacy mindset, and it's more consumer to consumer. But I think privacy is human to human, right? Like you deserve to have that. And I was excited when you accepted. And Arjun, thank you so much for such an awesome conversation today. I know I've got a couple of things I need to change, back to that. If I pay for it, I'm probably okay to being a little bit suspicious about that. But your insights on digital privacy have been really awesome. And I encourage anyone that's listening today to try out that phone number that Arjun just told you. And we'll have it in the show notes too, because I think it's really important. Arjun, thanks for coming in. Really appreciated the conversation.
Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed the conversation today.
If you like what you heard, please subscribe wherever you listen and leave us a review on Apple Podcast or Spotify. Those reviews and your feedback really do help me understand what you want to hear about. If you want to reach out to me directly about the show, email me at threatvector@paloaltonetworks.com. I want to thank our executive producer, Michael Heller, our content and production teams, which include Kenny Miller, Joe Benacourt, and Virginia Tran. Elliot Peltzman edits the show and mixes our audio. We'll be back next week. Until then, stay secure, stay vigilant. Goodbye for now.